Hello and welcome to the Blueprint Leadership Podcast. I'm excited about being here with you today. I'm also excited about what's going to happen over the next few weeks. We're going to close out this year with the podcast, reflecting back on moments that mean a lot to all of us. As we look back on 2021, God has definitely empowered us to move forward. So here we are looking into 2022, knowing that we've been equipped and prepared, we're stirred up, and we're ready for what God is going to do next. Over the next few weeks, we also get the opportunity to reflect back on special moments we got the opportunity to share with Deacon Will Hill. You know as well as I do that his impact in leadership, not just here in Revealing Truth Ministries, but in our community, is indelible. He made a mark that cannot be erased. So I hope you enjoy the episodes over the next few weeks, and I hope that you're stirred up and you're reminded that you're well prepared for what God has next for you. If I don't catch you in person, maybe I'll catch you in the chat. Until then, know that we love you. Be blessed. We'll see you soon.
Welcome, everyone, to the inaugural episode of the Blueprint Leadership Podcast. I am Willie Hill, and I'll be your host. We're so glad that you're here with us. We can't think of a better time to launch this podcast because here we are at the beginning of a brand new year. It's 2021, and of course, you know we've just come out of 2020, a year like no other. There's so much that came out of 2020. So many emotions, so much doubt and uncertainty that came from that year. And one of the things that we know is that regardless of the things that we face, we always have to know who we are, where we stand, how to overcome those things, and be able to push forward. We never want to lose traction because of the things that we're going through. So right now, I'm thrilled to have with me today my senior pastor, Revealing Truth Ministries senior pastor, Pastor Brian Poe, as well as one of our campus pastors at Revealing Truth Ministries, Pastor Lamar Mills. And the reason I'm so excited is because we've talked about some things that we know are going to bless you. And so I thought that was a great way for us to launch this podcast, is to dive into those things. So I won't delay anymore. I'm going to go right in because Pastor Brian,
yes, sir.
You posted something that just grabbed me, and I was like, oh yeah, this is where we have to start. In one of your Truth Is moments, you posted, seasons of uncertainty should never prompt urgency in the life of a believer, but the pursuit of clarity.
Yes, sir.
Now, we know if there's one thing we've seen from people coming out of last year is everybody's urgent, everybody want to do something, everybody feel like they got to do all kinds of things. So if it's not to prompt urgency, but to prompt the pursuit of clarity, what should we be pursuing clarification on?
Yes, clarification of our faith. You know, the Bible tells us that we live by faith. Mm-hmm. And so we can't ever have an understanding of faith that doesn't give us the resources to live. And what you discover in seasons of uncertainty, one of the things that you can always expect in seasons of uncertainty is for faith to be clarified. Mm-hmm. And that's where we say, no, it shouldn't prompt us into urgency, but should prompt us into saying, God, what is unclear? Mm-hmm. You know, what is unclear that I feel urgent? Mm-hmm. This uncertainty made me feel like I had to spring into some action. I had to do something more than just trust in you. Yeah. And in that moment, you have to realize and say, there's something unclear about my understanding of faith if circumstances control my trust in what I believe. Because circumstances shouldn't control. Right. And I'm saying, man, do not count yourself as something strange has happened to you. The Bible says, don't ever think something strange has happened to you. Right. There's nothing strange about you. I believe in seasons of uncertainty. I believe we go through seasons so that God can continue to clarify faith to us. Mm-hmm. And so if you found yourself there, says, you know what? I'm not strange. There's nothing wrong happening here. What I need to do is get clarity.
Yeah.
I need clarity because I shouldn't have felt urgent.
Right.
I shouldn't have felt urgent. And
Now that is so contradictory to what most people said, right? Probably the most prominent thing you heard of all last year was, this has never happened before. There's never been a year like this. We've never seen this. So it put everybody in this sense of urgency. It put everybody in that place to where, yeah, it is strange. Everything about it is strange.
Yes.
So it's absolutely contradictory to what you say we should be focusing on in this season.
Exactly. And that's what, like I say, should bring us back to the Word of God. One of the things that, and I'm just continuing to say them in ways that people understand. One of the principles we hold true to here at Revealing Truth Ministries, it's not what's being said, it's what's been said that we have to focus on. When you're feeling unsettled, don't try to chase something new. Go back to what's been said and seek clarification.
Oh, wow. Right. Don't chase something new.
Don't chase new.
So
right?
All we heard all last year was, you got to find the new, right? You got to find the new thing. You got to get into the new order. Totally wrong.
Totally wrong. Because this is what you get, right? New will build excitement, but new won't replenish you and refresh you and free you for what's next.
Ooh.
That's new will always build excitement. And God doesn't want us running off of excitement. He wants us living off of faith. And so, man, you got to make sure that, I'm thinking so much good stuff right now.
Let it fly.
Paul even talks about how, make sure your faith is not found in the wisdom of men, right? You can get excited about how something is said, but Paul said, make sure that it's not founded on that wisdom. Make sure that your faith is founded in God alone. And that's where he said, something about, if I felt urgent, something about my faith had mixture. Something about my faith wasn't clear because, I got to a moment where it was time for me to stand in faith and not feel urgent, yet I felt urgent. That lets me know right away, I need clarification. I need understanding because, urgent situation and uncertain situations shouldn't make me feel uneasy, but they should draw me closer to God. And the scripture that I plant all of that on is found in Proverbs 29:18 in the Message Bible. It says, if people can't see what God is doing, they stumble all over themselves. If you can't see, you stumble. If you can't see, you feel uncertain. If you can't see, you feel urgent. If you can't see, that's where the questions come. But when they attend to what he reveals, they are most blessed. And I'm like, in every season, there's something good God is doing. In every season, there's something good God's wanting to do through you. But it requires attention to what he has revealed. Another reason why we're Revealing Truth Ministries, right? Because where truth is revealed, attention can be paid. And when you pay attention, and I love this, it says attend, right? Not know. A lot of people you can know, but if you don't attend to what you know, you don't get the fruit of what you know, right? And so, but right there is where I planted on to say that no, when I attend to what God has revealed, I'm most blessed, and knowing that I'm most blessed should quench the thirst of feeling uncertain. Should quench the feeling of feeling uncertain. Should quench the pursuit of, I need something new. I need something different. When I believe God's always saying, no, you just need fresh. You need restored. You need to go back and uncover, get clarification. And so I'll jump in there, right? So what is the major truth, right? Truth is faith isn't about controlling what's next, but trusting God with what's next. That's that. Okay, Pastor Brian, make it clear, make it simple. We're about simple truth, right? What got clarified about our faith? That faith isn't about controlling what's next, but trusting God with what's next. Now, right here, which I said, we didn't have to find new scriptures for this. we just went back and pursued clarity in what's been said. Went right to the father of our faith, and Romans 4:16. And I would love to break this down. I can break this down.
Go for it.
Break this down.
Go for it.
And of course, stop me where we need stopping, right? So the promise is received by faith. It is given as a free gift, and we are all certain to receive it, whether or not we live according to the law of Moses. If we have faith like Abraham's, faith like Abraham. So it's telling us faith like Abraham's, but it's about to break down what type of faith Abraham had. Okay. For Abraham is the father of all who believe. He's the father, right? So that's why we're looking at Abraham. We're looking at, not no new way, but we're looking at the true way, right? Yeah. This is what the scriptures mean when God told him, I have made you the father of many nations. This happened because Abraham believed in. What did Abraham believe in? He believed in the God who brings the dead back to life and who creates new things out of nothing. Right there is showing us Abraham believed in this type of God. And the type of God that brings dead back to life, who creates new things out of nothing. He trusted in that type of God, right? 18, even when there was no reason for hope, uncertainty. So now we're seeing we got the type of God Abraham believed in, and we got the situation he had to believe that type of God in, which was uncertainty.
Right.
Even when there was no reason for hope. He had zero reason for hope. Sounds like moments of 2020, right? And that's why we can go in here and say, wait a minute. He had no reason to hope. Abraham kept hoping, believing that he would become the father of many nations. For God said to him, and I like the pause right there. There's actually a comma right there telling you to pause. For God said to him, and that's why I say, man, what was Abraham doing? He was attending to what God had revealed. For God said to him, that's how many descendants you'll have. Abraham says, man, my uncertain situation is hopeless. However, the type of faith I have isn't in my situation, isn't in my ability to do, but in the type of God I trust in. Like it's not in my ability to control this situation, it's not in my ability to manipulate this situation, but my faith comes in the type of God I trust in. And I trust in the God that brings dead back to life and who creates new things out of nothing. That's how I can have hope in this hopeless situation. I can have hope in this hopeless situation because of the type of God I have my trust in. That's how many descendants you'll have. And Abraham's faith did not weaken. There goes the clue. His hope, there was no reason. He had no reason to hope. However, his faith did not weaken. Even though at about 100 years, he figured, different translations say he considered his body was as good as dead, as so was Sarah's womb. Wow. This is groundbreaking. This is the father of our faith. The father of our faith is saying he considered, he thought about what was working against him. Now, that breaks every rule of faith as we knew it. Faith as we knew it would say there's no way he could be considering these things that are working against him while still maintaining faith. And it goes on later to say strengthening his faith, although he was considering and thinking of things that were literally working against him.
Okay, so one thing I'm going to, just to make sure that we stay on par, the underlying theme rolling through today is that word clarification. So when you say consider, I think we need to clarify. Make sure people understand what that means, that he considered his situation.
He knew, he thought about, and he realized what was working against him. He knew it. He knew it. He wasn't.
So he didn't pretend that he wasn't 75 years old.
Because faith doesn't pretend. Faith reveals. Right. And Faith isn't about me fantasizing. Faith is about me realizing who I'm trusting. Like faith brings you to truth. Faith brings you to truth. Faith doesn't bring you to a fantasy world. Faith always brings you back to truth. But Abraham said, no, my truth is, the truth that this situation brought me back to is I have to continue believing in a God who raises dead back to life and who creates new things out of nothing. So Abraham said, no, man, even when I considered where I was, that didn't stop God's dedication of what he had promised.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Ooh, right there,
Whoa.
right there. Okay, so even
Yes.
though I have to admit there is a virus going on,
Yes.
there are economic challenges,
Yes.
there are things going on in people's lives that are not pleasant, let's say.
Yes.
That does not, make that statement again.
That does not give me the reason to doubt God's promise. And I say this because wow, I can consider all of those things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, because of the type of faith, right? This is what we're clarifying. Abraham walked in the type of faith that brought him back to God.
Right.
Abraham didn't walk in the type of faith that was supposed to manipulate or control his reality. He walked in the type of faith that identified truth, that identified what God is about. His type of faith brought him closer to saying, man, this is why I have to trust in God. It's like when you consider your situation, right? Faith shouldn't, when your faith is right, faith doesn't detach you from God, it attaches you to God, right? And man, the consideration of your situation, when you're operating in clear faith, it should continue to attach you back to God.
Yeah.
Especially as I can say, man, you can almost see this. As Abraham got older, his attachment to God got better. Because he realized the only way this can happen is if God is who God says he is.
Yeah.
And that's where we have to say, man, your consideration doesn't stop God's dedication. But you have to be walking in the type of faith Abraham walked in, which wasn't a faith that was in his ability, but a faith that was 100% trusting in God's ability.
Yeah. The type of faith that Abraham walked in. Not the type of faith that manipulated his reality.
Exactly.
I want to make sure they heard that part. But you said that.
Abraham considered it. Abraham thought about it. Abraham figured, God, only you.
Yeah.
What I hear you saying is, so in moments of uncertainty, we naturally search for certainty.
Absolutely.
We naturally search for things that we can relate to. The challenge is that you forget that God is the most certain thing that's in your life.
Exactly.
So it's like in a moment of uncertainty, you should be going to the thing that you know or the person you know to be certain, which is God, which is your relationship with Jesus.
Yes, sir.
So then that brings in you're talking the example of Abraham. I think what we don't talk about enough. We know that Abraham is the father of our faith, right? But what we don't talk about enough is because Abraham walked in faith because of his relationship.
Amen.
And what we see over time, what you just mentioned, is over the years, Abraham's relationship with God got better. And that's the thing that's highlighted, right? I mean, you look from Genesis chapter 12, when we get that introduction with God, right? Abraham and God are just getting acquainted. They find out that they have something in common, right? And then you go to Genesis chapter 14, and Abraham finds out that this God that I'm trusting in is mighty enough to cause me to win a battle against some real kings.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, and then what happens in Genesis chapter 15? Oh, God is revealing himself to Abraham. I am El Shaddai, right? I am your protector. And this is what we see all throughout. Like Genesis 18, it's just introductions where Abraham and God are getting to know each other because this is what real faith is about. Like real faith is about your relationship. Everything else is sourced from my relationship with God. So if it's power, if it's might, if it's ability, if it's prosperity, all of that is sourced from my relationship with God.
Yeah. So I'm throwing two things right here, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
Clarifications of faith, right? Faith is the resource in which we foster relationship with God.
Right.
Faith is the resource in which we foster relationship with God. And I'm gonna throw this one on the back end, and we'll talk about it, because faith isn't simply about expecting transactions from God, but making transitions with God.
That's right.
Faith isn't simply about expecting transactions from God. We've always, and people have had a transactional idea behind faith. Faith is how I make transactions with God. No, faith is how you make transitions with God. It's how you go from seasons to seasons with God. It's how you go from uncertainty to certainty with God. It's how you move with God is in faith.
Right.
You know, you can't just simply see faith as this is how I receive and get. No, this is how I move with God.
Right.
Because faith is the resource in which we foster relationship with God, which we grow a relationship with God. And that's how Abraham was able to strengthen his faith in a season of uncertainty, because he realized faith is how I maintain relationship with God. It's how I foster relationship with God. It's how I make transitions with God. I have to keep looking at God and his ability to be able to make, I like to just continue that line, to make new things out of nothing and to bring dead things back to life. That's what I'm looking at. Now I'm looking at that, and as I look at that, faith says I move from season to season, maintaining that viewpoint. And I know Pastor Mark talks about it all the time, so I'm gonna throw this over here to like faith points you back at Jesus.
Oh, absolutely. And so what you were just talking about, the scripture that goes right with it is 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. We all know it, right? We walk by faith and not by sight. What that is not saying is that faith is this blind guide.
Yes.
Faith is not saying that faith is blind.
Right.
It's designating how we walk. I walk by this relationship with God, and this relationship with God is the priority over what I see. So I don't determine my lifestyle based on what I see. I determine my living based on my relationship with God, which is my faith, right? How do I have this right to have a relationship with God? What gives me the right to have a relationship with God? I should say it like this: who gives me the right to have a relationship with God? It's Jesus. You can't detach it from Jesus. Even Abraham walked in the way that he walked. God gave them a revelation of the promised seed. Abraham had an understanding of the promised seed. I look at Genesis chapter 12 and I say that Abraham and God met because they had something in common. God wanted family. Abram wanted family. And they were like, hey, we can walk together. Like, we can do this together. Right? And so Abram's passion about having an heir connected to God's desire to have heirs.
So with that point, when we talk about clarifying faith, and we've hit on some real key things, but you talked about God's purpose meeting and matching with Abraham's desire.
Absolutely.
With all the things that people are facing, we're talking about things that have thrown us into this season of uncertainty. Why now, moving forward, going through what we're going through, why is it so important now that people take time out, people do what's necessary to clarify their faith now?
I bring it back to what Pastor Brown was laying out. It's like, you can't move forward without him. You can't move forward without your unseen help. right? Your partner in life, right? He partners with us in this life. You can't move forward without him. I mean, he's for whatever 2021 has to offer. I mean, your partner, God, the Lord is powerful enough and well able to get you out of it.
Yeah, and to continue what Pastor Mar says, there's a simple statement that we make, right? We make this statement: God wants the glory. God wants the glory, and as long as we're maintaining an idea of faith that still has our effort a part of it, God can't get full glory. And so why I tell people, you want to get you need to get excited when God starts to clarify faith in a way that moves it further away from your effort and closer to his promises, closer to his doing. Because the further God moves the idea of your understanding of faith away from you and back on him, the clearer it is of who gets the glory from this story.
Right.
And so when you start to see God take control away from you and put trust back in his category, you are walking into a moment where God's glory is clear to be known. And that's why I say, why do you want your faith to be clarified? You want your faith to be clarified because God performs where faith has been clarified. God moves where faith has been clarified. God moves where the opportunity for him to be made known to others is clear. God avoids, I'm going to say it as strong as I can, God avoids moments where it's like, man, they're going to take the glory from me through what I do. And God moves in moments where the glory is going to come to him. And what we have to understand, and what 2020 taught all of us, is, and this is another truth, it's not on faith, but is even when God hasn't maintained our plans, it doesn't mean he hasn't kept his promise. And that taught us that, man, faith is all about trust. Faith is nothing about my performance. Faith is about my obedience, but faith isn't about my performance. And that says to us that, man, we are moving in position. We are getting our hopes ready, our lives ready for God to do a work that he gets 100% glory from. And if we really want to be truth about it, faith has started to slid over to a category to where it was almost hard to determine, is it what I'm doing or is it what God's doing? Is it what I did or is it what God did through me? Is it was it my good works or his great performance?
Was it my credit?
Was it my credit or his credit? Was it a little me or none of me? And Abraham would tell you, no, God's waiting on the moment where it's all of him. He waited until I was too old and her womb was super dead for it to be undeniable that this is God's doing and it's marvelous in his eyes. And I say, you got to realize this thing. Satan has no patience, but God does. And so we're like, man, that means I might have to wait. That means I might have to stay. I might have to stand. I might have to be patient. It means, yes, it means all of those things. But patience has a perfect work it forms through you. But don't get it twisted. Man, anytime you are starting to see your faith get clarified, man, that is making a clear moment for God to get clear glory from this story.
So it means I may have to go through a whole year of this situation instead of having you snatch this year away from me.
Because this is what I have to realize. Faith isn't about getting transactions from God, but making transitions with God. God is a good father, and I'm glad you brought us over here, Dick. God will do for you out of his love for you, not your performance towards him. If we only think that God does good things for us simply because we did good things towards him, then this will make us mad. this will make you mad.
Exactly.
If you think that I have to get my faith clarified for God to do something for me, then you this will only make you mad. If you think faith is all about transactions, then it will make you mad. But if you understand faith isn't about you getting from God, it's about you making transitions with God. It's about you maintaining relationship with God. God, let's just make this clear, right? God is a good father. He does things out of his goodness for us. What is goodness? Goodness is the package that includes his grace, his mercy, his favor, and his forgiveness. That's the goodness package. And his goodness package is always planning to do good things for you. You want your faith to be clarified so that you can live life with God without being uncertain. But it's you're not stressed about it. You're not worried about it.
Regardless of circumstances.
Regardless of circumstances, because God performs out of his love for us. Man, Abraham wasn't stressed. Why? Because God performed. Well, first of all, it's clear. Abraham is our father of faith because he believed he was righteous by faith. So Abraham already knew, like, man, I'm all right with God, and God is all right with me by faith. And if God is all right with me, and I'm all right with him, then I don't have to worry about what I need, right? But God wanting to clarify my faith, man, that's awesome. That's enriching. That's powerful, right?
You know, I don't know who said it, but I'm going to insert it here. Once you detach your faith from outcomes, you can sleep better.
Wow.
Once you detach your faith from outcomes, you have better sleep. Because it's not about it's as much as we've made it about what's manifested. It's about relationship. And what caused Abraham to be content, or Job to be content, or Paul to be content, is because they knew that they had relationship. And when I have relationship answers whatever I'm facing out here. Relationship answers the uncertainty. Abram learned through experience that, man, I got a relationship with God Almighty. So whether it be my impotent body, Sarah's empty womb, kings coming against me, Sodom and Gomorrah, my hard-headed nephew, whatever the challenge is, relationship is what's going to get me out of it. And, that's, you talk about clarifying your faith. It's like, let's reel it in and bring it back to where it's supposed to be.
And see, that's important because, again, now it's 2021.
Right.
So we're moving forward. And if we're not going to remain in this season of uncertainty, we need to know how to walk.
See,
so for those of us who aren't there, for people who are like saying, I hear this Abraham thing, but I need to do some things different then.
So a Sunday or so ago, somebody mentioned that 2020 taught us not to make plans, and it was like, when I heard it, it was like, that's like nails on the chalkboard, right? Because who wants to say that? Like, no, don't say that. Because God has plans that not even 2020 can stop, right? So how do we move forward? Even, it's still uncertain. We have no idea what's going to happen in 2021. But how do we move forward? I know who God is. This is uncertain, but this is certain.
And I would just add on top of that, right? Even further, right? Faith is not to trust planning.
That's good.
You can
like rewind, say that again.
You can make plans, but 2020 tells us don't trust that plan.
Trust that plan.
And man, I really want to say this, right? Because when you understand that faith is about a relationship, and you understand that God performs for us and God gives to us out of his goodness, you take getting out of the picture. Like God certified how he gives.
Getting out of the picture.
God certified how he gives. He said, for God so loved the world, he gave, right? He said it from the beginning. He said it from the beginning. Giving from me and getting from me is all about my love for you, right? It's there. That's where it comes from. And I say this because I want to go here. We're in the blueprint, right? We're going here, right?
That's what we're here for.
We're here for, right?
Go there.
I would say, yeah. So what does faith do? Faith is about glory. Right? There's his goodness provides for your story, but faith creates room for his glory. Right? It's like,
Tell us what glory is.
glory. God's perfect will for me being made known. And when I say known, I mean being made real. Glory is about what God's perfection showing up.
Yeah.
Glory isn't about it still being in my thought life or in my dreams or on my dream board. No, glory is when it's gone from your thoughts, from your dream board, and it's touchable, right? And glory is God's perfect will for me being made known. It's very personal. Your glory is not the same as my glory, not the same as Deke's glory. And I want to say this, right? Because it's and I'm gonna read this to you because this is where I believe it becomes so clear, right? But when Jesus heard about it, he said, what was he talking about? He heard about Lazarus dying. Lazarus' sickness will not end in death. No, it happened for the glory of God. It happened for God's glory. And we have to realize there are things in our life that we would call uncertain, moments that we would call confusing, that are moments for God's glory. And it's in those moments that we have to realize, man, like faith in God, my continual trust in God lays the stage for God's glory to show up. Now, I would like to say this, right? You getting and receiving from God, that's great. That comes from his goodness. But when we talk about the glory of God being shown, we're talking about what only God can do.
Yeah.
And we have to maintain a faith that says, man, it's all pointed at God, right? It's all pointed at God. And it has so the Son of God will receive glory from this.
That's
you
good.
know,
I love that when you emphasize what only God can do.
yes.
Because when I think of anything that we say needs clarifying, it tends to point to the fact that, there's some things that are off, right? And when we say only God can do, I've heard you say, and I love the way you say it, so this is a perfect opportunity for us to be able to dive into a little bit more. I've heard you talk about what we call faith games.
But before you say that, I want to clarify this. So many times when we talk about faith, people think about the impossible manifesting, the thing that's beyond, your imagination, right? We sometimes it's the thing that God showed us, sometimes it's the thing that we came up with on our own.
Right.
But what I want to insert here is that even if the thing that God does, that only God can do, is to change your mind about how you see a situation. Even if the thing that God does, that only God could do, is mend a relationship that you're having challenges with.
Exactly.
It's not just the huge
Mountain
thing.
moving.
It's the thing that God does.
Right.
If it was God that made the relationship that I have with this person better, I didn't do it, they didn't do it, man, God did that. So it it's not always that thing.
Right.
It could be the thing that is very near to you.
Exactly.
It's the thing that God does.
Right.
It's the thing that God does.
Yeah, and those are things we cannot lose sight of.
Right.
But often, as I know that's why I hit your spirit, often we do. Often we look at it has to be this mountain moving.
And that's where we get into the faith game.
That's where we get into the faith game. And that's why I wanted to touch on that. Because we can create these things that are not in line with God's will.
Yeah.
It's more our will.
Right.
Yeah.
What we think this should manifest and what this should look like.
Right.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and I believe that, and I want to read this, right, in 2 Peter 1, starting, I'm going to start at verse 3. I'm going to take it up. And I believe that this puts faith in context, and this helps with avoiding faith games, right? It says, by his divine power, God has given us everything we need for living a godly life. Right there, you should pause, right? Because many faith games are talking about you getting as though you're insufficient of something. But right here, by his divine power, God has given us everything we need for living a godly life. We have received all of this by coming to know him, the one who called us to himself by means of his marvelous and glory and excellence. And because of his glory and excellence, and because of his glory and excellence, he has given us great and precious promises. Right there. That should help. That should help clear up a faith game, right? Faith game. How do I receive promises from God? Not by playing a faith game. What's a faith game? Man, I'm just be playing. Sow this seed and God will reveal something to you. No, God has given us great and precious promises because of his glory and excellence. It's out of his greatness that I have received this precious and awesome promise, right? And even that's where just to tag a little bit, I'm a double team this one just for those naysayers, right? It's by faith that Abraham received the promises of God, not of his own works. Once again, reminding us it wasn't something that he did. And once again, here in Peter reminding us, not as something that you did that gets God to give you promises, right? So anything that's saying do this to get a promise from God, that's inaccurate. That's a faith game, right? And because of his glory and excellence, he has given us great and precious promises. These are the promises that enable you to share his divine nature and escape the world's corruption caused by humans' desires. I would talk about that all day, but it talks about what his promises give you the ability to do is escape uncertainty, escape the world is corrupt. People like the world is so corrupt. What do I do? His promises and trust in his promises give you the ability to escape the corruption. Clear view of what God has promised you brings you out of uncertainty. Knowing what God said and attending to what he said brings you out of uncertainty. Not a faith game. Right? Not sow this seed and get out of this trouble. No, see God clearly and faith will bring you out of that trouble. What trust in what he said. Faith is trust in what he said.
And so on that point, before you leave that point, now where we get stuff is important. Where do faith games come from?
Wow. Woo.
Not knowing what faith is from the beginning.
First started off with not knowing what faith is. And we had a conversation before, so I don't know if Deke wants to go there now. But faith games, which is, I'm glad you went there because that's a great setup for what's next, right? Faith games, the Bible says we are drawn away by our own lust and our own desires, right? A lot of times people blame the person who presented the faith game, but the Bible is clear that there's something in you that wanted that game. There's something in you that wanted to avoid the process of maturing, wanted to avoid the process of having to go through this to get to that. There's something in you that wanted to play games. You wanted God to be, Jesus. You wanted him to be jackpot Jesus. And he's not jackpot Jesus. But there's something in you that wanted a jackpot Jesus. And what Peter goes on to explain here is the answer to like saying, no. You that's not your faith didn't need a game.
Okay, you got to give the people a little bit more on jackpot Jesus.
Jackpot Jesus.
Jackpot Jesus.
We are all the way in right now.
We all the way in. We all the way in.
Jackpot Jesus is maintaining the mindset that I just do this and God does that. God is not a if this then that God, right? And like no, it's not it's not pull the lever. And let's see what pops out. No, that's not what it is, man. You know, and
you say faith isn't for manipulating.
Faith isn't for manipulating.
Faith
isn't for manipulating. Faith is I'm gonna put another word, is the resource, the critical resource from which we foster relationship with God.
Right.
Why would God want manipulation a part of the fostering of a relationship with you?
Yeah.
God doesn't want you walking around here waiting on jackpot Jesus, right? He wants you to know that, man, and this is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Even my miracle promises are sure. And that's why I say Abraham was trusting in a supernatural promise.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put this here, not a spooky natural, a supernatural.
Wait,
Abraham,
so it wasn't meant to be spooky?
it wasn't spooky. He just was saying, this is beyond my natural ability.
Yeah.
This is beyond my natural ability to produce. So we're not saying jackpot Jesus in the sense that God is not supernatural. God is 100% supernatural. God is in the miracle working business. We're just saying the greatest miracle in any season that God can work is you. And so it's not for you to play faith games to avoid the development of you. It's for your faith to bring you to the point where it reveals truth that you might need some development, that you might need some maturing. But it's out of God's goodness that he'll do the miracle, right? But faith brings me to the reality that I might need to change something. But faith doesn't bring me to the point to say I need to just wait on jackpot Jesus. No, your faith may need something. Okay, so I'm right there, so I might as well read it. In view of all of this, make every effort. There's a word, right? Make every effort to respond to God's promises. Supplement your faith. Pause right there.
Yeah.
Faith needs supplement.
Because a lot of faith games is to avoid what we are clearly told our faith needs.
Yes.
Wow.
People play faith games because there's a desire within them not to want to have to pursue moral excellence. And so they'll play a faith game.
Yeah.
Or they'll even present faith as all that you need so that they could avoid their moral character. So that they could avoid knowledge. They could avoid, self-control. They can avoid patient endurance, so they can avoid godliness, so they can avoid brotherly affection. They play games because their flesh doesn't want to have to adhere to what faith is calling them to. Because faith is about fostering a relationship with God.
Right.
Faith isn't about getting transactions from God. It's about making transitions with God.
Right.
It's about me moving in life with firm assurance in God and who he is. It's about me looking at Jesus and positively responding to what he has done and saying, God, I will open myself up and in faith and trust in you, I will change what I don't even think it needs to be changed about me.
Right.
I will adjust what I don't even think needs to be adjusted about me. And I don't even think this adjusting is about me getting from you. You give out of your goodness. This adjustment is about I'm the greatest miracle. Like God, I'm your prize. I'm your masterpiece. And God's like, man, I just want you to look as glorious as you've been made. Right? And I'm gonna read it. I know I kind of put it in there, but supplement your faith. And I tell people to break this down. For some people, like, what's a supplement? You go to Smoothie King. Go to your favorite juice bar, right?
Right.
They'll say, man, Pastor Brian loves the Key West smoothie down at my favorite smoothie place. But the Key West smoothie does not come with anything that can build me. I have to add supplements to the smoothie. Vitamin C. I have to add, I'm thinking of my list of stuff that I normally add. Vitamin C. I'll normally add some energy. What's the other one? There's one I always get. Some antioxidants. I'll always add whey protein. That's what I was thinking. I'll always add some protein, to my smoothie. These are supplements that make this smoothie good, that make it not only taste good but make it live good. Ooh, that's a good one. But it makes it live good, and faith makes you live good. Faith isn't just simply about tasting God's goodness, but being able to live out God's goodness. That's rich. Supplement your faith with generous provisions of moral excellence. It's saying your faith needs some moral excellence, and with knowledge, and knowledge with self-control, and with self-control with patient endurance, and patient endurance with godliness, and with godliness brotherly affection, and brotherly affection with love for everyone. And the more you grow like this, the more productive and useful you will be in your knowledge of Jesus Christ. And here's the key. But those who fail to develop in this way are short-sighted and blind. Faith doesn't make you short-sighted, and faith doesn't make you blind.
That's right.
Okay, that word, blind. We're talking about clarifying. We're talking about correcting some things. Can't tell you how many times people have used that word blind as it relates to faith.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to facing challenges, especially when it comes to growth opportunities, something God is trying to build in you. Well, what do I need to do with that? Well, you just need to, just have blind faith. Just go along. That is not what the word is saying.
Yes.
I'll bring it back to Proverbs 29:18, which says where people, I'm going to say it like this, where people don't see the plan of God. When people are blind to what God is doing, they get reckless, right?
Wow.
Where people are blind,
With that, so they know
that's Lamar Mills' version. When people are blind to what God is doing, they cast off restraints, right? But blessed are those who attend to, or blessed are those who can see the will or the purposes of God. And so to address the blindness, there are places in the Bible that give this is a description of faith. There's another word, but this is an example of faith. When we see what the end result of Abraham's life, this is an example of faith. Peter walking on the water is an example of faith. What's some other great thing that happened? These are examples of David multiplying the fish and the loaves, David slaying Goliath. These are examples of faith. But then there are other places, and in those cases, like faith could be mentioned. But then there are other places that give a description of faith, where the word faith isn't used, but this is what faith looks like. And I think about when after the resurrection, Jesus meets Peter and the disciples on the shore. And he has that conversation with Peter. If you love me, feed my sheep. If you love me, feed my sheep. They go through that whole thing. This is a description of faith. What is happening to Peter? Peter is now seeing. His eyes are being open to the will of God. His eyes are being open to the plan of God for his life. This is just as much a faith moment as anything else, because it brings him back to what God is doing. And then what it did also was it showed Peter in this conversation, the reason Peter got so upset about it was like, why are you asking me this again? Why aren't you talking to him, right? Peter he felt some type of way. But because what it did is exactly what you're saying, Pastor Brian. It revealed to Peter the areas of his character that needed to be developed. It showed Peter, you need to supplement your character, right? You need to supplement your character. You need some more patience. You need to stop thinking about you and think about other people. You need to direct this not on what your plan is, but on what my plan for other people is. Peter was learning how to be a shepherd in that moment. It was like this shepherd was teaching Peter how to be a shepherd so that Peter could continue the plan of God for his life. That's just as much a faith moment as anything else.
Because truth is, faith doesn't simply produce things for you. It reveals truth to you.
That's right. Yes, sir.
That's good.
It reveals truth to you.
Reveals truth to you.
You're reading from 1 Peter, right?
Yes, sir.
I want to add another verse. 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 9. It says, the reward of trusting him, Jesus, will be the salvation of your soul. Another translation says that the aim of your faith, or the goal of your faith, is your salvation. Hold on, let me go there, because it says it like, which you already have. The goal of your faith is to bring you your salvation, which is already yours. And we keep trying to aim our faith in all these other directions. It's like, really? Like, do I want to aim my faith at a house? When it's aimed at my salvation? Talk about getting your priorities all jacked up, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm trying to aim my faith at some material stuff. My faith is working on my salvation. But we miss it, and I love heaven is enough. We miss the perspective. We live in this world, and we think that the things in this world are we put the things of this world above the things that are in our next life or eternity. We weigh these things heavier than what's going to happen in our life beyond here. So I would aim my faith at something that happens here and forget that my faith is aimed at eternity. But the beauty of it is that because my eternity is taken care of, I can live free in this world. It's like if I understand the weight of what Jesus did for me in taking care of my eternity, which is what my faith does. My faith connects me to the eternity that he ransomed for me. My faith, he told his disciples in John chapter 14, I'm going away. I'm leaving you. I know that's going to make you grieve, but this should make you happy. I'm going to prepare a place for you. Wow. I'm taking care of that side so that you can live free on this side. Oh my goodness. How far away have we moved from just feeling the joy that should bring us? Knowing that what Jesus did took care of eternity. And if that heavy load has been lifted for me, then I can walk free. I can have liberty on this side. And that's I think that's just such good news.
It's so important because if we don't get these points of clarification, years like 2020 will feel like decades, right? Because without clarifying these points, 2021 has no promise of being any different than 2020. 2022 or 2023.
Any challenge.
Exactly. Because to your point, if we're pointing our faith in the wrong direction, if we're focusing on the wrong things, then these things are just I almost said they're going to repeat themselves. They're not just going to repeat themselves. They're just going to be continuous. We will never come out of uncertainty if we don't make these clarifications. So, Pastor Brian, I would say clarifying faith. If we want to look for moving forward, we look for not repeating or not staying within this season of uncertainty forever, not having this be a perpetual mindset or a perpetual state. Sum up for us just the importance of making sure that we clarify faith in this season.
And Pastor Lamar just kind of said it there, is for us to always make sure that whenever we're talking about faith, that through it all, it uncovers Jesus. If like, man, if I'm going through and thinking about, faith and how am I supposed to be applying it and how I'm supposed to be using it and I'm feeling like, man, you guys said a lot and man, I just need to follow this up. If your pursuit of faith doesn't uncover Jesus, then it is not the right type. And I'm going to read this, and I'll close here.
Okay.
And I want to go to 1 Corinthians 3, and I'll read at verse 8. And the one who plants and the one who waters work together with the same purpose, and both will be rewarded for their own hard work. For we are both God's workers, and you are God's field. You are God's building. And we have to understand here that in this text that Paul is addressing people wanting to compete about who fathered this and who started this and who's building this and who's doing this and what are you marrying that to? I'm marrying that to, like, you might be saying, I hear what you guys are saying, but I know what I heard before. And I'm just trying to bring it all together. Paul is speaking right here into that moment. he says, verse 10, almost go back to verse 9. He says, for we are both God's workers. And I want you to realize this, that we are all God's workers. We're all pursuing clarity from God. And that's what Paul say. He said, but realize this, you are God's building. You know, you're God's building. You're who he's prizing. You're who he's building. Verse 10, because of God's grace given to me, I have laid the foundation like an expert builder. He's saying, look, I laid a foundation, and I know we're trying to grow beyond the foundation. I know we're supposed to be building something on this foundation, and I know we're supposed to be getting clarity, and I know we're supposed to be getting revelations, and I know we're supposed to be getting rhema word. I know we're supposed to be getting, I know there's things that are going on top of this foundation of Jesus and his forgiveness of us. He says, but I want you to know this. Paul speaking for himself, I have laid the foundation like an expert. The foundation I laid like an expert. Now others are building on it. And that's what we're doing. We're building on it. That's what we're building on it. Pastors, teachers, you as people, you're building on that foundation.
Yeah.
But he says this, but whoever is building on this foundation must be very careful.
Yeah.
And that's where we say we have to be careful about how we pursue our understanding of faith.
Yeah.
Paul's like, you got to be careful. Because let me tell you what faith points at. Faith points at Jesus. Faith points at the goal of your faith was salvation. The point of all of this was salvation. And now I know you guys are wanting to put stuff on top of this. I know you're wanting to build things on top of this. And Paul's like, look, let me tell you something. I can't always speak. There's people working. I can't always speak for them. But what I'm telling you is you better build like an expert. If you want to put something on top of faith just being about salvation, you better build like an expert because the foundation is laid and you better be very careful.
Right.
And he says why. He says, for no one can lay any foundation other than the one that we've already laid, which is Jesus Christ. And what am I saying? I'm saying if you're trying to figure out, is my faith jacked up? Is my faith foggy? Is my faith this? If your faith broken down doesn't bring you back to Jesus, Paul would say that was built wrong.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
That was built wrong. Tear it up. Tear it down. Because if you break it down and it doesn't bring you back to Jesus, it was not built on top of the foundation that was expertly laid.
Yeah. That's powerful.
That's clarifying.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, that's absolutely, that's it. You know, like the litmus test that I use is if Peter, Paul, James, name your disciple, if they couldn't walk in it, if they wouldn't recognize it as faith, then it's not. Yeah. Because they responded to what Jesus did. That's their whole lives were just a response to what Jesus did. The resurrection is foundational for our faith. Like the fact that this man came and said, I call Jesus this man, but in their eyes, it was just, at the beginning, it was like, for a long time, it's just, okay, this guy, you know, I'm checking off some boxes. Yeah, it seems to line up. Yeah, he might be the Messiah. They went all the way like this for 3 years. He might be, we've seen him do some wonderful things. He might be the guy. He might be the guy. He died. Oh, shoot, he wasn't the guy. It's like, he wasn't it. He died. Like, Messiah can't die. 3 days later, he rose. That sealed it. Game on. Everything that they did, as Acts says, they turned the world upside down. These men turned the world upside down. That came as a result of them responding to what he did. Their lives of faith was all based on what he did. Because of what he did, this is what we do. To the point that John and Peter, when they were on trial, their only response was, how can you telling me to stop talking about this? Like, really? This dude died and rose again. You want me to stop talking about that? Like, It's not possible.
Right.
Because that's what their life became. It just became a response to what he did. And Hebrews 12:2, which you preached on, right? It says that we are in the company of a great crowd of witnesses as it relates to our faith.
Right.
Why is that?
Right.
Because all of us are responding to the same Jesus.
Yeah.
Me, you, Paul. I even bring in Old Testament characters, Moses, Noah, Abram. All of us are responding to the same promise, which is Jesus. And that's what our faith is. Because of what he did, I can do.
Yeah.
You know? So
that word is foundational.
Yeah.
Yes.
Foundational. And when you recognize, regardless of what's going on around you, regardless of what worldly season you feel like you're in, come back to your foundation, focusing back on your foundation. That's always that point of clarification that you want to look for.
Yeah.
You know, not to be distracted by things that come and go. Not to be distracted by, whatever year it was or whatever season is happening. But that foundation is what's solid, and that's what's going to keep you pure. Pastor Brian, man, wow, what a way to kick it off. Pastor Lamar, thank you so much, man. So glad you guys were here.
It's a pleasure.
This is our first. But there is so much more to come as we continue to address what happens during a season of uncertainty. Because again, we're not here to just be repeating the things that just constantly flow and constantly surround us. We're here to have a basis and understanding of exactly what our foundation is. So those kind of things, we're going to discuss even more, with our pastors about what happens, what truly happens in a season of uncertainty. So we hope you'll go ahead and subscribe and follow the podcast so you won't miss anything that we have going on, because we'll be back with another episode. This is just part one of our conversation around navigating through a season of uncertainty. So again, thank you, Pastor Brian. Thank you, Pastor Lamar. Thank you guys for being here. And we can't wait to see you on the next episode of the Blueprint Leadership Podcast.